Welcome, and thank you for joining this session of Innovation Institute 2021. With nearly 50 sessions available through the summer, we know you'll be discovering new skills, strategies, and resources to transform the teaching and learning in your classroom, and we would love to hear from you. If you haven't already done so, please be sure to visit the Town Hall in Attendify to connect with the attendees through the activity stream or community features. If you would like a certificate of attendance for attending this session, you will find the request form linked at the end of the session description in Attendify. Thank you, and enjoy this session from one of our amazing Innovation Institute presenters.
Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Julie Boatwright. I am a teacher at HAR-BER High School here in Springdale, Arkansas. Really want to thank you for joining us at the Innovation Institute's 2021 Summer Virtual Conference. It's been a tough year, but we're so glad you guys are joining us. And many of you have been here before. If this is your first time, we hope that you get a lot out of today's conferences today. I want to welcome you to our session called Helping Parents and Students Navigate Virtual Learning. Our presenter today is Megan Gretzinger, and she can tell you more about herself. And I think we've got a lot of great things to learn from her. Go ahead, Megan.
Hi, folks. Thank you for joining me today. I'm excited to get to share with you some ways that I found this year, just how to best navigate helping parents and students get through virtual learning, which has been such a new thing for all of us. I am going to go ahead and have Kyle or Julie share my presentation, I think is the next step. So I am the Instructional Technology Director at Clinton School District in Clinton, Missouri. We're in West Central Missouri, and we are pretty rural, but still one of the larger schools in our immediate area. And this is my first year in this position. So my going joke is that it was a heck of a year to take a tech job. No small shortage of issues or problems that have happened. And I've been in the classroom for 14 years prior to this. I did elementary keyboarding. I've taught high school social studies, middle school math. So I've done a little bit of everything. My information is on that first slide. I do like to add to my professional learning network on Twitter. So if you're on Twitter, follow or post a question, holler at me. I also have the chat open in Attendify, and Kyle and Julie are helping with the chat here in Zoom. So if you have any questions, give me a holler. And go ahead and go to the next slide. So if you're in here, you're not in Manuel and Sadie's session that's right at the same time, but this was my inspiration from some of their sketchnoting and design ideas, is just a little bit about myself that I drew very poorly, but I attempted. I also went through the E-Mints program quite a few years ago, and that was kind of one of the groups that initially got me into Innovation Institute. I've been presenting here for several years and have really enjoyed it, and I'm excited to share more with you today. I think we got it where we can add in on the chat or turn mics and cameras on if you want to share. Sometimes you don't want to share. Maybe you're home in your pajamas. That would be nice. But I also have a Jamboard. The link is in the Attendify chat, or it's linked in the slideshow. But there's a slide to share some funny memes, and then anytime there's a question in the discussion, there's a link for the Jamboard there if you want to share something. So I really like this meme that was kind of all about bracing yourself for virtual learning and wondering what this year was going to be like. Last year in March, we jumped off the deep end and didn't know what we were getting into, didn't know what to expect. And in a lot of ways, different school districts really got to make things their own this year. So on the next slide, These are my definitions of kind of the different types of virtual learning that we've seen this year. So some have gone to a totally full virtual model. Everybody's at home, or teachers are at school, kids are at home, and that's how you're connecting. Some are working concurrently. So you might have some kids in class and some kids at home. Some are doing a hybrid model where you're at home some days, at school other days. My district, I personally titled it what we call the quarantine model. We were fully seated almost the entire year, unless students were on quarantine, and then they were at home and teachers had to provide work virtually. Does anybody want to share what your year looked like, what model you were participating with? You can also add it on the Jamboard if you want to share that. Rachel said all blended, virtual, traditional. So a little bit of everything. I think that blended or concurrent model is maybe some of the most difficult teaching people have ever done, and trying to keep people on task in your classroom and then, authentically connect with those kiddos that are at home. Erin said she was a completely virtual teacher. So that's interesting, Erin. I'm trying to stalk the chat and see where you said you were from. Erin said she was from Springdale. And then Kyle said we had a blend of hybrid and quarantine models. So that's a little bit of everything. And so hopefully everyone will find something that they benefit from today. And if you want to go, all right, so next slide. What have been the troubles? What are your troubles? And we can talk about, I know one of our troubles that we started out the year with was that we were not one-to-one. We did not have enough devices. So that was one of our biggest hurdles, and it took us most of the year to get to that point. If you want to put in the chat or put on the Jamboard what your troubles have been, if I know that you've had a specific issue, maybe we can talk about that a little further. I know some of our other struggles were that our teachers, especially in lower elementary, were not well versed in technology, and they had a lot of problems getting information to their kids virtually. When their kids were quarantined, our district policy was that everything had to be done online, Google Classroom. And so kindergarten teachers, rightly so, struggled with saying, how am I going to take someone who just turned 5 and share everything with them on Google Classroom? They've barely been in a real classroom at all. Erin said having parents help too much. So my own kiddos, they were quarantined a couple days, and I had to rein myself in a little bit, not in doing the work for them, but in fixing some of the tech problems that they were having. So I can understand that, especially if you're fully virtual, having that would be a little weird. Thank you, Erin, for sharing that. I'm sure that having some of those parents, are sitting right there in the corner, knowing everything that's going on, or listening and watching everything that's going on. All right, if we want to go to the next slide. So I know this was all about helping parents and students, but one of the first things we have to do is help the teachers. And we want to do that so that they can help the parents and help the students. Next slide. So well-trained is well-prepared. And we started out this year, we made a big push to get all of our training days up front. All of our PD days were before school started. Had some positives and some negatives with that, but we wanted to have our teachers, have everyone establish a Google Classroom and get them as much training before the year started. So Some things that worked really good for us. Small group instruction, training teachers in their grade level teams was something that was really beneficial because I could sit down and tailor things that were specific just for second grade or just for fifth grade. We also did a lot of guided practice. Some teachers have been in the classroom for 20 years, but Google Classroom is still new to them. And so they wanted some more hands-on practice. I also did quite a few recorded trainings where I would do a Google Slides presentation or a demonstration and then record it with Loom and have that available as an option for teachers to watch on their own time. Does anybody want to share something that's been beneficial to you as a teacher or to the teachers that you work with? Feel free to turn your mic on and yell it out to the world if you want, or put it in the chat. All right, Aaron said Seesaw has been helpful. I've seen that used a lot with especially lower elementary, pretty beneficial there. Julie says Google Slides. Google Slides are so versatile. There's so much you can do with them and ways that you can really use them to teach, but also teach from them. So I love Google Slides. Rachel said Schoology. I never, if someone wants to turn their mic on and tell me the right way to say that, I appreciate it. It's GIF or GIF to me, how you say that one. All right.
You had it right, Schoology. Yeah,
Schoology
is correct.
Schoology, thank you. I appreciate that. All right, if we want to go on to the next slide. So helping parents, what are some of the things that parents have needed help with the most? Feel free to turn on your mic or put in the chat. I know my little Bitmoji there, when you're a brand new parent, everything seems scary and you don't know how to do anything. And I feel like that was this way for a lot of parents, even parents who are in education. They know how to do the school year, they know what to do, but this year was really, really tough, especially if you have parents or guardians who are not tech savvy.
Just helping parents and students through the different platforms that we use sometimes during school.
Yep. The number of different places that we end up sending them in our teacher brain, a lot of times it's like, oh, well, you go there and go there and go there. We just see it as a couple clicks, but for parents, especially if they don't understand, well, is it an app? Is it a website? What's an extension? Julie said high school knowing if their kids were working or not. We had several incidents where we ended up going and taking devices away from kids who were doing virtual at home because they weren't working and the parents thought they were. They had no idea. So, all right, let's head on to the next slide. So one of the first things I started with is here's a sample acceptable usage policy. This is something that we wanted to line out. What is acceptable, because we sent devices home, what is acceptable for them to do at home even when they're on a school device. And so I think it's important for districts to kind of lay out those expectations. Some districts use a really formal policy, others are going to just kind of have basic guidelines, but I think it's better to spell that out in advance than leave it for later. All right, and then what are some ways that were best for you to connect with parents? We did a lot of social media. We did our school website. We did School Reach or School Messenger, whatever your version of that is, to try and get information out. But we still struggled with getting information to high schoolers that, hey, you get a device, you have to come pick it up at the beginning of the year. So what were some ways that you connected best with parents or your community in sharing information? So Erin said we had a beginning of the year orientation. That was on my dream bucket list. If we could have got people together to do an orientation, we looked at kind of doing a Zoom orientation and just didn't have enough participation. Danita said that they did email and Remind 101, both good options. So some other things that we pushed out some infographics, some that were borrowed, some that were found, some that were created. We also did some videos just for parents or students. There's some benefit to creating your own if you really want it to be personalized, really want it to be tailored. There's a lot of times that somebody else has already created the wheel. They did a really good job and I just end up sharing their information. So there are lots of different ways to connect. Rachel says school status. Is that like, I'm guessing that's like school messenger. I haven't heard of that one. And Erin said Seesaw again. Yeah, Seesaw.
Yes, it's like a school messenger. It's amazing.
Okay, awesome. I'll have to look into that. So on the next slide, tech support, because that is one of the biggest areas that parents are going to struggle with. Most parents and a lot of teachers don't even know the difference between a Chromebook and a laptop or what you can do with them. So how we approached it is, once again, teacher training, making our teachers as comfortable as we could get with the information. And then typically we had a tech, what we would call expert, either in each building or grade level, where teachers could go or parents could be directed to answer some of those parent questions. As far as a path for parents who are struggling with technology, the starting point is always going to be their child's teacher. So connecting with that teacher, having that teacher troubleshoot or walk them through some steps. And that did require a lot of some of our teachers. There was just we didn't have another tech person to dedicate to just doing parent FAQs or anything like that. If the teacher couldn't solve the problem, then we typically went through the school office or directed them to the expert teacher in that building for someone else to help. And if we were still struggling past that, then they came to me. I had quite a few at the beginning of the year, but after that, it was rarer. I know some school districts have a dedicated TEXA person just for kind of parent and student issues. Others have a help desk that they staff where you can submit a ticket like teachers do. But so we just kind of did it in-house, and most of the time our teachers could get them lined out. Julie also said Canva was great for connecting. All right, so helping students. And when I think of helping students, I think of, as from the tech savviness side, how tech savvy so many of our kiddos are, but also how different those levels can be, especially when they're little. You have some kids come in who already know just about everything, and some kids who have had no exposure to technology. So does anybody want to share what's something that had been most beneficial to your students as you are connecting and working with them virtually? All right, we'll go ahead and move on. Oh, teaching the base, Julie says, teaching the basic tools, mute and unmute. Sorry, I didn't give my teacher my count in my head quite long enough to let everybody have time to respond. Mute and unmute. I had one teacher who told me that showing her how to mute kids on Google Meet was life-changing, Making screencastifys to walk them and their parents through the task. Absolutely. That is one of my favorite tools, is to make those quick little 30-second long videos and just send those out. So one of the things that I feel like people talk about, but is not necessarily verified, is the less clicks. How many clicks does it take them to get to something? How ease of use is it for them to access something? And I think it's always important to simplify, especially the younger your kids are, thinking about how to navigate back and forth. How are they going to get to the next step? Are they going to have to log in again? And having a lot of that information really spelled out. One thing, if you are not familiar with it, that I would highly recommend checking out is HAR-BER docs, where you are really trying to house as much information as possible in one set of slides or in one Google Doc. It can really, really help in that navigation process, especially if you have kiddos who go through and they get 50 tabs open and they can't find anything. If everything they're doing is in that one doc, that can make it really, really nice. We got more votes for Screencastify and Clever. Erin says everything goes through Clever in their district. So that's another great option. So ease of use. These are a couple different documents. Well, one at least document, and I have these linked at the end of the slideshow. A couple different formats of things to present to parents and present to students that house all their logins and passwords in one place. I know my first and second grader, they probably have 5 or 8 logins for different platforms that are being used. They learn them pretty fast, but as a parent, I'm like, wait, where are you going? What are you doing? Why are we using this? What is this doing for us? So there's also a page there that is linked at the end to use for kind of an explanation box. Here's what we're talking about. Here's why we use it. Here's what the login is. Here's what the password is. I think Erin had the comment about parents at home. This was one of my personal pet peeves, was having my kiddo working on a slide and the document was just a picture. It was an image and it wasn't saved as the background. So she had drug the picture off one way and the text box off the other way, and she was in tears. And so I had to log in and fix it. And that was one of those biggest things that I have taught so many people to do, is to save that image as the background so that kids have one less thing to drag away. One new update for ease of use was that you can now save progress in Google Forms, which I thought was huge. Julie said, one place for as many things as possible is so important to reducing that cognitive load with just following directions. Exactly. We do that as teachers. I know in teacher training where it's like, oh, you click here and then you go there and then you go to the next space. And for some teachers, you've lost them at the very first step. So that ease of use. Danita uses ClassLink. Yes, I absolutely love ClassLink. We converted to ClassLink during the middle of the school year this year and are doing a full district-wide push out next year. And I'm really excited about that. I showed one of my first grade teachers how to make the QR code cards and hold them up and scan them. And she said it changed her life, that she could never go back. So ease of use and thinking how that path to navigation is easiest for kiddos is always important. So other things that we can do to help our kids work easily when we're doing virtual learning. Next slide, please. Is thinking about how you're going to structure your Google Classroom or your LMS. I know at the beginning of the year, my teachers were just putting information in. They had a new kid quarantined every day and just putting information in. And then eventually it got to be a jumble. It looked like you dumped the filing cabinet into a Google Classroom. Everyone gets to kind of pick their own method for organization, what's going to work the best for them. One of the methods that I like best is to have topics with today's work, and then work by week or work by your topic or unit. So every single day you have today's work, and that's what's up front and center at the top of your page. And then moving that down to blocking it by week or moving it down to your units. Another recommendation I'm making for next year for a lot of my elementary classrooms is to have a different classroom for each content area. So have Miss Johnson's math class, Miss Johnson's reading class, Miss Johnson's spelling class, and teaching the kids to go back to their tiles and to navigate to each of those classrooms just to clean it up a little bit. But also understanding, especially for your littles, that could end up being too much. So pick the path that's best for you. So another thing to think about is giving instruction in a variety of ways. I know we've mentioned Screencastify in the chat. I have actually used Loom this year, and I really liked it. Not that I typically do long videos, but it has a little bit longer video time if you were doing longer videos. And it's just super simple to click and share the link. You can also see who's viewing it, see if the people you've sent it to have actually used it. And another really, really handy tool that I like is Moat. So Moat's gonna allow you to embed little voice clips. Basically, if you want to speak your instructions, is another way for students to get them. You can put it into Google Classroom, you can put it into your docs. Pretty much anything across the Google platform, you can add a little Moat sound bite in. I know a lot of teachers use it as a way to provide feedback on digital work. So normally you'd write a little note and say, hey, Susie, this was really great today. I liked how you did this. Or Tim, I need you to redo this and try it again a different way. And sometimes that's hard to relay as we're typing it. And it's a lot easier to just record it and add that little Moat on there for them to listen to. Other ideas that I like are using a checklist or a numbered list. Hey, here's what we're doing today. You're going to do it in this order, really kind of spelling it out. That's something that I've heard from parents that they like to see was a list of like, what is expected to be done today? What am I checking off? And another option is using your snipping tool to show those little screenshots and embed those in there like we might do with a Loom, but maybe we just need one little screenshot. Click right here and do that. So just providing all that information multiple ways to students can be really helpful. Office hours, having office hours that are dedicated for students and for parents is something that I've heard was really appreciated from a lot of my teachers, that knowing that they had a time that kids could check in. So like high schoolers, if they needed to ask a question, knowing that you're automatically going to be there. And then for parents, having something that they could bop in to ask a question, possibly separate from their student. All right, helping the tech department, because sometimes we also need a lot of help too. Some ways that we have helped our tech department this year, definitely adding ClassLink into our lineup of tools was a major, major assist for us in the ease of creating student accounts and getting things to teachers faster. Some other tools that we have used, I think, are on the next slide. So Securely is our content filtering, but also content monitoring for our Chromebooks. So we get updates of any searches, emails, docs with anything, bullying, self-harm, any indication that a student needs to be checked on. But we also use Securely 360 so that teachers can monitor student screens. They basically get an almost live feed of what is going on those student devices, and teachers have loved that this year. Other monitoring options that are out there, there's GoGuardian and there's Land School, and I'm sure there's 100 others, but those are the two that I have had experience with. Julie says, Go Guardian has been valuable for face-to-face and in Zoom. Yes, it is so nice. I know, showing teachers that they can pull up that screen. You can close out those kids' tabs. You can set up a block list. All of those tools are so important, especially when we're asking teachers to do so much this year. So the other thing that I put to help with the tech department is establishing those procedures and sticking with it. Who is the contact person? Who passes things out? Who did they turn them in? How are your devices inventoried, tracked? Who gets your logins? Who gets your passwords? Where is that information stored? How is it accessed? I know coming into this role at my district, everything was kind of a little bit piecemealed. Oh, well, this person does that, but only part of it. And this person does this, and we don't really know who does that. So having that lined out, especially if you have multiple buildings in your district, so that everybody knows what to do and how to follow through with that. All right, and some resources to finish us out. I am almost barely over time. So some quick guides here that I have. Some of these I have found and are sharing. Some are ones that I have created. Others are things that have been shared with me. But so there's some information on setting up Guardian emails, quick tech guide, some information on Google Meet, some information on Google Classroom, and then a login sheet and a reference sheet. One is kind of tailored for students and the other one is tailored for parents. And there's some places that I got some extra information that helped me along with creating this. I would love to answer questions or hear from y'all if you want to turn your mics on or talk in the chat. Is there anything that you were hoping was covered today that I didn't get to? All right, well, thank you all for attending. Thank you for participating, and I appreciate your time today.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm going to as soon as I can find my way back to it because I'm in something else.
Thank you, Megan. Really appreciate having you with us here today.
No problem.
When you're with all you're talking about, I keep thinking, oh, we're going back to normal, but we've gained so much and learned so much technology tools. We've got to keep using them face to face. And some of our kids are going to stay virtual. They're going to switch to virtual. So it's important that we keep learning and taking into account all the tools that we've gained and learned this year to make them better for us.
Yep. No, I have seen a lot of discussion about, well, is going back to the way it was really what's going to be best for everyone? And, you know, how do we take all the stuff that we kind of learned in the chaos this year and put it into what might be a normal year next year?
Yeah. Thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
If you are thinking about getting your certificate, remember that in Attendify, there's a link to get your certificate. There's also a reference here of a bit.ly and a QR code to help you get that. If you want, you can go ahead and log out from this session and get ready for your next session. Again, thank you, Megan. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.